Alright, y'all. So, a lot of NBA fans seem to be kind of surprised today when the Hawks decided to not reach an agreement with John Collins on a extension contract, making this the potentially the last year that John Collins will be an Atlanta Hawk. I think a lot of the confusion just stems from the fact that John Collins has been a very good producer for the Hawks in his first 3 years. Most notably, last season he averaged 21 points per game to go along with 10 rebounds, and he shot 40% from three. So all of the makings are that he is a perfect, I don't want to say perfect, but he is a very good sort of undersized five or four that can play the five for today's NBA, and that he can stretch the floor, he can provide you with some interior rim protection, and then he could also be just a great roll man. That's what he's most known for, and he's almost the perfect pick and roll partner for Trae Young because of his ability to finish lobs, but then also be able to pick and pop for a three-pointer every now and then. So I would understand why it could come as a shock to a lot of fans why the Hawks would decide to not give him an extension and wait and see and let it play out during his final year of his rookie contract to see what exactly they want to do with John Collins, because there's still plenty of things that could happen. In the end, John Collins could just end up re-signing as a restricted free agent. There could be a potential sign-and trade. They could trade him before the deadline during the season, or he could just simply walk away for nothing. All of these things are still in play, and as I always like to say, we're going to have to wait and see, as that's the type of league the NBA is when it comes to these contract issues. There's nothing to do but wait and find out what exactly is going to happen. We don't know. Injuries could happen. John Collins could take another leap forward and turn into an all-star level player. All of these options are on the table. But after having some time to really think it over, I have a few reasons as to why the Hawks might have decided to do what they did today, or at least what they didn't do today. And I think it all has to come down to, just looking towards their future and trying to manage their spending before, giving away too much money to certain players that they are going to look back on and regret. Obviously, the Hawks were one of the busier teams in this offseason. They brought in Danilo Gallinari on a 3-year deal where he's going to be making around $20 million per year. They also brought in Bogdan Bogdanovic, who's going to be making $18 million for the next 4 years with a player option in that last year. Not to mention, they also traded for Clint Capella last season, who's also going to be making around $17 million for the next 3 seasons. Now, I bring all of this up because for the next 3 years at least, they have a lot of money tied up in those 3 guys. If my math is correct, it will be around maybe like $55 million in those 3 guys. So that's almost half your cap space right there. Now, adding the fact that outside of John Collins, the Hawks have done a great job of drafting good, talented players over the past couple of seasons, meaning that obviously after this year, John Collins' contract is up, but the year after that, you're going to have to pay Trae Young, and as of now, I see Kevin Huerter fitting in with their future plans, so you're going to have those 2 guys that you're going to have to pay. Then the year after that, you're going to have DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish, who are going to have to get paid, and again, those are guys who I can definitely see fitting into the Hawks system for years to come down the line. DeAndre Hunter has already emerged as someone who seems to have a starting spot locked up. Maybe not completely locked up, but for the most part, he was first gave him the starting nod at the start of this preseason, and he's been absolutely balling. So I see no reason why he would lose that starting job yet. And then as for Kevin Huerter, he started last year with Trae Young in the backcourt, and now they have Bogdanovic to move Huerter back to the bench, but I still don't see why they would get rid of Huerter. He seems to fit well. He's a slightly bigger guard who can play off ball and shoot and provide great spacing for Trae Young to run his pick and rolls. And then Cam Reddish is also another guy who, similarly to DeAndre Hunter, just seems to be progressing really well as an off-ball wing threat who can also play high-level defense, which the Hawks are going to need in order to win around their centerpiece, who I haven't even gotten yet to, Trae Young. Obviously, Trae Young is the main guy on this team. He's going to be their superstar for as long as they hope he will be, and as long as Trae Young is willing to be. And obviously they're going to have to pay him a supermax, so there goes a lot more of your money in 2 years. And then guys like Reddish, Hunter, and Huerter, they're all probably going to make in the range of like 10 to 15, maybe even a bit more per year. And in the end, when looking at things, John Collins just doesn't have enough. There's just not enough money left for John Collins to also remain on a contract that is worthy enough to keep him. And let's just say if the Hawks were to have paid John Collins today before his extension deadline, he probably would have signed for something along the lines of 4 years for like 70 to 80 million, putting him at around 18 to 20 million per year. And if you do that, it just leaves absolutely no money. You're able to sign Trae Young, but you're definitely going to have to cut, or someone is going to have to be expendable out of the group of Huerter, Reddish, and Hunter. And I just don't think that's a decision that the Hawks wanted to make today. I think they wanted to at least wait one more season to figure these things out, which gives meaning and gives evidence as to why they wouldn't have signed John Collins to an extension today. Because like I've said, in the end, John Collins is another great fit for this Hawks team, and he is a great player himself, so it's no slight on John Collins as to why he didn't get the extension. He's a great player. Obviously, he had the PED suspension last season. I don't know if that's going to be a recurring thing or not. I don't think it will, at least not yet, and that just seemed like something that was a minor issue that was kind of swept under the rug in terms of, if it's going to be an issue down the line. But in the end, John Collins, he's a great fit, he's a great player. I just don't think the Hawks wanted to rush into spending a lot of their future money, just considering that they have a plethora of young talent that they're going to want to keep in the future. And I guess in their eyes, John Collins isn't as worthy, at least to be the first one to get his money, as some of the other players. And that's completely understandable to me. If I were the Hawks, I think Trae Young is obviously your number one priority. And if you have these other bigs like Capella, and they just drafted Onyeka Okongwu, and you have Danilo Gallinari and Bogdanovic for at least the next 3 seasons, then there isn't a rush needed to get John Collins pen to paper to also have him for the next 3 or 4 seasons. The most obvious counterpoint is one that I praised Collins for earlier, in that he seems to be the perfect pick and roll partner for Trae Young. And even if you do end up losing John Collins, obviously there will be lost production there, but we saw Capella be a lob threat in Houston with James Harden. He won't be the same type of lob threat that John Collins is, but he could be a similar, slightly worse lob threat for Trae Young to maintain. And then you could also use Gallinari or just other players in general if you want to run pick and pops with Trae Young, although I don't see why you wouldn't run as many pick and rolls as possible, just because that's Trae Young's bread and butter. Overall, I think the trait that's going to be missing most if John Collins does end up getting moved at some point or simply just leaves the Hawks as a free agent, I think it'll be his ability to stretch the floor. And it's not just because he is a good shooter, even though he is. I think it'll be more the fact that if the NBA does maintain this system of every team wanting to have some sort of a small ball 5 on their team, or just someone who could be in that same role, John Collins is a pretty good fit for that role, like I said, because he's a rim protector, and more importantly, it's because he can stretch the floor, and that provides spacing for Trae Young, along with the fact that you could also just fit John Collins anywhere at the 4 or 5, and even at the 5, again, it's just even more spacing for Trae Young to operate. You have the paint is less clogged, and you don't even have to run pick and rolls with John Collins if you don't want to, because he could spot up on the perimeter. And overall, he's a great fit for Trae Young and the Hawks. I just don't believe that the Hawks want to jump into any sort of contracts anytime soon, and they just want to keep their future books open. And I don't blame them for that. I don't blame John Collins for wanting his money, and I wouldn't blame him if he requests a trade at some point, because clearly he isn't the number one priority for the Hawks. He might not even be the number 2 priority for them, and his talent is going to be useful somewhere. So I hope John Collins finds a place where his talent can be used. And again, I don't blame the Hawks. Hawks are just trying to manage their money well. And yeah, that's about it. As always, drop your comments down below on what you think about the John Collins and Hawks situation. While you're down there, maybe leave a like if you enjoyed this video or enjoyed this type of content. And other than that, as always, most importantly, thank you for watching.